Good morning, good people. This is your Pool-Proof Wisdom Moment. I've been thinking ever since I heard of the murder of the 8 innocent people in Atlanta about the language used by the sheriff or deputy or whatever role he allegedly had that described the actions of the murderer as a person who was having a really bad day and therefore justified in what he seemed to be doing. Further insult was added to injury when his actions were tied to a fetish involving Asian women. But of course, it wasn't about race. Makes you sit up and take notice, doesn't it? I am a person whose life, whose career is built around language and words. I love them. Understanding them is important to me, and using them so that clarity is a result of any form of communication is what guides me in my personal life and my professional life. And what I do know is that we have got to raise the bar of expectation so that we can start calling a thing, as I like to say. What we know from what happened in Atlanta is that, yet again, someone who looked a certain way, who represented a greater series of people in this country than others, was given a pass for his behavior because he was having a really bad day. And if it had been someone else of a different race, of a different ethnicity, different gender even, different religious practice, we know that would have been called something entirely different. We've seen it time and time again, yet we somehow convince ourselves that this is a surprise and that it's something else other than what it really is. I don't believe in disguising the truth. I believe in revealing it so that we can all understand it in the same way and then act in accordance with trying to get around whatever our own issues are with the truth so that we can work together, live together, and get this planet, this world that we've created, back on track. Because we are certainly off that track whenever we can justify someone killing 8 people as having a bad day, and then somehow, subtly, blame the victim because of someone's alleged fetish toward a specific race of woman. It's ridiculous. You know, as I was thinking about this, I thought deeply about the use of language and how we allow ourselves to get away with not saying what we mean all the time. I think about how we use labels to escape having to actually be honest with ourselves and others about what we think and feel about them. One example that came to mind was, I was thinking the other day about a conversation that I had about 2 or 3 weeks ago. This was before the shooting. And someone who is a friend of mine was discussing with me a conversation they had about me with some friends of theirs. And he said that I was telling him about my black friend, Charles. And I paused, and I stopped, and I waited for a moment so I could tell him this. I said, your black friend? Is that what I am, your black friend? And he was like, well, you know, they just didn't know you. And I told him, I have never in my entire life described any of my friends by their race, by their sexual preference, or what have you. I don't say my friend who is carrying an extra 10 pounds, Jody. I don't say my friend with the very long fingernails, or my friend who, of course, doesn't wash his hands after going to the pooper. I call you my friend because that's what you are. These other additional adjectives that we add on to it aren't necessary. And it made me realize that we are in a country and we are in a space and time in this country where we need to step up and start listening to what we're saying before it comes out of our mouths. Remember that movie with Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan where he said, are you hearing the words that are coming out of my mouth? Well, that's what we need to do, but we need to do it a little bit in reverse. We need to think about what we're saying and what the implications and meanings are. And that's not politically correct. That's just being sensitive to the fact that we are all humans and we don't need all of these labels to describe who we are. The day that I become only your black friend versus your friend is the day that you are saying to me that somehow I am different from the rest of the people you consider friends. And that's a problem. If you don't know that, You need to sit down with yourself and think about why it is. It's not my responsibility to explain it to you any more than it would be yours if I were walking around calling you my whatever friend. Because in this world, we are humans first. And without being human first, there is nothing else that really matters. There's an old saying that goes, God created everything. And in general principle, we accept that. Nonetheless, over centuries, over millennia, we humans have consistently shown that despite having that belief that God or Allah or whoever it is that you name what you believe is the spiritual power that creates and manifests itself so that we are able to go on, is whatever was created, that somehow we then have the right to decide which of those creations, of all of them, are worthy to live, to worship, to love, to do everything. And I'm here to tell you, on the heels of Atlanta and so many other instances where people have been attacked and murdered, targeted, simply for being who they are, for being born into the skin that they are in or having the beliefs that they have, that the time has come to take stock of what we think and what we say so that we're clear on what we mean. And until we do that, we are going to be witness to the repeated exercise of this horrible behavior that convinces people that certain people are allowed to be ignored, targeted, and killed, and the people who are the perpetrators behind it are somehow only doing it because they had a bad day. Let's make this a good day for the entire world by choosing to be differently, act differently, and behave with integrity. And that begins with communicating clearly what we think and what we mean so that labels and terminology used to disguise the facts and the truth are no longer part of our nomenclature. But telling it as it is becomes the way that we all communicate with each other, hands down, time and time again. That's the end of my soapboxing for today and is your Poolproof Wisdom moment. You can find me on Spotify, on Apple and Google Podcasts, and podcast platforms everywhere, including Anchor.fm.